Among the important scientific discoveries of the last century, the HeLa cell line has contributed to numerous major medical breakthroughs. It played significant roles in research on the effect of zero gravity in outer space, the development of polio and COVID-19 vaccines, as well as the study of leukemia, AIDS virus, and various cancers.
HeLa cells were labeled as immortal by scientists when they became the first human cell line that could grow and divide endlessly in a laboratory. This was revolutionary, as prior to the discovery of HeLa cells, other cell lines would typically die in culture after days or weeks, making experimentation difficult and often unfeasible. For decades, HeLa cells have been the primary human cell line of choice in biomedical research. Though other enduring cell lines have been developed, HeLa cells continue to be widely used to advance health research and medicine.
Henrietta Lacks was a lower-class tobacco farmer, and her cells were taken from her without her consent and knowledge in 1951. Despite the significant contributions of her cells to the biomedical field, Henrietta remains largely unknown, and some of her family members cannot even afford health insurance. This video will dive into the origin of HeLa cells, the impact on Henrietta and her family, as well as the ethical implications of the process.
In 1951, Henrietta was admitted to a cancer clinic at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, Maryland, which was the only hospital that treated African Americans at the time. She was diagnosed with aggressive cervical cancer, and her cancer tissue was sampled by the surgeon and passed along to a researcher without her consent. Although Henrietta passed away from cancer, her cells, HeLa, named after the first two letters of her name, continued living and dividing.
In 1952, HeLa cells became the first human cells to grow and divide indefinitely in a laboratory, as well as in research with over 110,000 publications by researchers all around the world. They were used to grow large amounts of poliovirus, leading to the development of the polio vaccine, which some may argue to be the most important biomedical discovery of the last century. HeLa cells were also used in understanding how X-ray affects human cells, developing cancer research methods, studying cell aging with telomerase, tuberculosis research, understanding HIV and Ebola infections, and showing how certain viruses can cause cancer. The cells were even sent to space to understand how space travel and radiation might affect humans. And most recently, HeLa cells were used in COVID-19 vaccine research and studying infectivity of SARS-CoV-2.
Despite HeLa cells' revolutionary contributions to medicine, Henrietta's family remained largely unaware of this until recent years. For decades, her family was not informed that Henrietta's cells were being used for research, and they continued living in poverty while a multi-billion-dollar biotechnology company was making large profits from mass-producing her cell line. The companies that profited from using HeLa cells never gave any money back to Lacks's family, and in 2013, a team of researchers posted the whole genome of HeLa cells online. Although later removed, the sequence could reveal private and possibly risky information about descendants of Henrietta who are now widely known around the world.
Henrietta's story brings up many issues in human biospecimen research, especially informed consent and racial inequity. In the US, a federal regulation called the Common Rule exists to protect participants in human research. However, if there is no interaction between researchers and the individuals who are the sources of the sample, and if the samples cannot be identified, informed consent is not required. Future direction, as stated by NIH Director Francis Collins, includes that consent should be taken from anyone before samples are used in research. However, this change may cause additional burdens for researchers. Henrietta's case also raises questions about the embedded racial inequities that have been present in healthcare and health research. Johns Hopkins was the only hospital in the area to treat poor African Americans, and the lack of respect towards Henrietta and her family is problematic and inhumane.
Despite the great biomedical achievements that were made with HeLa cells, these advancements should not and cannot be used to justify the wrongs committed to Henrietta Lacks and her family. With growing awareness of the controversy surrounding HeLa cells, significant steps will need to be taken in biospecimen research to prevent Henrietta Lacks' story from repeating.
If Henrietta Lacks, whose cancer cells are the source of the HeLa cell line, was alive today, what would you say to her?